Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Crew Travel Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and again, Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel in New Zealand. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Ray, yourself?
Hanging in there, as one does.
That's all you can do, isn't it, at the moment?
I know, right? I mean, straight across the face of the planet, things are changing so often. And yeah, I think last night it was, or this morning at some stage, I saw that there's all sorts of protests going on against restrictions around the world and wearing masks. And I don't know. I think, it's time to go back to, I don't know, politicians arguing or whatever it is that we're used to seeing prior.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it, doesn't it? You know, every news article now, or on the telly is more people protesting about the things that they're not happy about, and unfortunately, COVID is such a big part of that at the moment, and it's clearly bringing people down. And we've spoken about this before on the show. There's got to be some kind of new approach, I think, anyway, with regards to especially air travel, because people need to travel. And we're starting to see a few sort of lockdowns and stuff happening again. Um, and now with the COVID tests and how quickly they can be done, there's surely got to be a better way.
Well, for sure. I mean, we have crew being affected straight across the face of the planet, and recently, actually, there's been some issues out of Australia, and you've been having some serious issues coming. Crew phoning you up absolutely in hysterics because there are some issues coming out of Australia.
There is. I mean, Australia is a common theme on this show at the moment, isn't it? It's, like I said, we've spoken about it previously, but it is probably the most difficult country to get a seat into at this present time. Whereas before South Africa was difficult, and it still is difficult, but at least they've got a process in place with the repatriation flights that seems to be working quite well. But with Australia, they've just limited the number of the passengers allowed on the flights, and what we're seeing at the moment is that people and crew who we've had ticketed 24 hours before, 12 hours before their flights are due to depart, the airlines are cancelling them off because they've got to meet this quota that the Australian government have put in place. And unfortunately for the crew who are offloaded from the flight at the last minute, they're either looking at having to pay out business class fares and or wait to find another economy seat, which, if you're looking at a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, after the flight that you've had cancelled, it's virtually impossible at this moment in time. And like you say, with regards to crew, we've had horror stories of crew phoning us where they've been told that there's no flights until December. The situation isn't that bad. Let me reassure crew, there are seats. So don't panic. You will get home before Christmas if you're looking. But what we are seeing is that obviously they are very few and far between. So what we would say to yachts and to anybody who is planning for crew changes into and out of Australia, they really need to be planning for at least 1 month in advance. Me personally, if it was feasible and possible for them, they need to be looking at two, because if not, you are looking at extremely high airfares. And as we spoke offline just prior to this show going out, Qatar Airlines this week, they admitted that they were having to basically give favoritism to people who are paying business class fares just purely for the fact that the numbers they're allowed on there, if they were just filling their plane with economy class seats, it's just not financially viable for them. So that's why we're seeing economy class passengers being kicked off the flights at the last minute, because they're having to prioritise the business class passengers. So, like I said, anybody who is planning for travel to Australia, they really need to be planning at least 1 month, if possible, two.
So, do you think this is going to be a pattern that we see going into the future then? That people are going to, that flight costs are just going to rise straight across the board in order to accommodate the new reality?
I think if any other countries follow Australia's model, where they're capping flights at ridiculously low numbers. I mean, we talked about this before, but certain planes are only allowed to carry 40 people into the country at a time. How is that financially viable for any airline if you're paying economy class fares? It's not. Again, Qatar Airlines announced this week that they're actually now suspending sales on all flights to Australia until this maximum amount of passengers are allowed on a plane until that's over, which we believe the Australian government have announced it's going to be October. Hopefully, fingers crossed it is, and it will get back to having a decent amount of people on planes, but we'll wait and see. But like I said, if countries are going to follow that model, then yeah, I mean, I can only see one way airfares are going to go, and it's not going to be down, that's for sure.
Well, I guess they've got fuel costs, they've got crew costs. I mean, all those costs have to be factored in. And of course, you've got the CEOs that are sitting back in their big chairs wanting their little cut as well. So, the only way that's going to happen is if you've got passengers and passengers that are paying. I mean, I think we've gotten used to, as many years ago, flying used to be for the elite. And we've gotten used to this sort of, we're paying the same equivalent as bus fare sometimes to catch a flight. That may not be the truth going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's thankfully at the moment it only seems to be Australia where we're seeing this problem with people being bumped off flights. It's just to reassure crew and people who are travelling, this isn't across the board at the moment. This is just specific to Australia, and hopefully nobody else will follow that model. I know New Zealand basically put a limit on the number of people they can come in, but they're not allowing crew in at the moment anyway. So it's just passengers getting home, so the numbers aren't quite as big as what's trying to get into Australia. But yeah, it's going to be a worry that if people do follow that model, then like we say, the airfares are going to go up, unfortunately.
What's going on in India at the moment?
Yeah, so a little bit of good news in India. This last week, the Indian government announced that crew departing India can now book flights out of the country. They don't have to go through the government agency like they were before. This applies to flights departing India under the travel bubble agreements that they have in place. The travel bubble agreements are currently in place with countries such as the US, UK, France, Germany, and the United Arab Emirates. Once the flight is booked with the airline or your marine travel provider, you do not need to advise the government or take any further steps. So it's literally just booking your flight as you would have done pre-COVID. However, these protocols do not apply for returning passengers into India. If you're flying back into the country, you must fill in a form prior to arrival and provide details of your quarantine. Passengers with a negative COVID test can isolate at home for 14 days. But if you don't have a negative PCR test or you've not taken one, you do have to quarantine at a designated hotel for 7 days, and then you can do a further 7 days at home.
Okay, and Virgin Atlantic, what's going on there?
Yeah, so Virgin Atlantic, over the last few months, obviously, and them and most notably Richard Branson have taken a bit of a bashing, rightly or wrongly, with regards to their request for government funding and their handling of the staff during the pandemic. However, I am going to praise them today as they have announced that they've followed Emirates' suit and are offering all customers free COVID-19 insurance cover. All passengers will be covered during their trip for no extra fee, including those only flying one way. Passengers with a return trip, they'll be covered from the point of booking till when they get back into their home country or in a hospital in their home country. Meanwhile, for one-way trips, the cover will end 12 hours after the passenger's final flight has arrived. This covers the amount of £500,000 and will be in place for bookings up until March next year.
That's absolutely amazing, because I know that there's a lot of insurance companies right now that are saying if you travel, we're not insuring you.
Exactly right. It's tough for people to get insurance at the moment, and especially, and like I said, Virgin Atlantic have they've been knocked hard this last few months. You read the forums and you read business travel magazines and all the rest of them, and they're the first ones to get a bash. And so, rightly they deserve praise for at least doing this. They're only the second airline to put this in place.
No, that is brilliant. I think part of that comes into the fact that they do want people to travel, and a way to encourage people to travel is to offer that insurance. Because I know, taking a look at forums, people are afraid to go anywhere because they don't want to end up with the virus or any illness, perhaps an accident, and end up in the hospital and not be covered.
It's right. It's a real worry, isn't it? That especially you hear horror stories, and again you see pictures on social media of packed aeroplanes and all the rest of it. I mean, rest assured, the procedures and the processes that these airlines are putting in place to keep people safe are brilliant now. The amount of cleaning and sanitizing and everything else that's going into place, they're as safe as anywhere in my eyes. They're as safe as anywhere else you could possibly be at this time. But yeah, it is a worry. You're traveling to a foreign country. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know you may not know their processes. You've got quarantine and everything else to worry about. So yeah, flying is a worrying time at the moment. But we just need to get back into it. We need to be doing it, sort of try to make it a more normal process once more. You know, and I think the airlines are definitely starting to put, you know, procedures in place that are going to help that.
Well, we've seen, issues with airlines in the past with different tragedies that we've experienced and the step up of security, et cetera. So, airlines are used to dealing to a certain degree with things like this, and they are usually pretty quick at implementing whatever changes need to be made in order to ensure air travel continues the way it has.
Yeah, they have. They're exactly right. You know, some have been better than others. You know, I will admit that. You know, some have been proactive where others have been slightly reactive, shall we say? But they all seem to be catching up now. And for anybody who follows me on LinkedIn, actually, I put a link to a website which will show you the COVID safety rating of airlines at the moment. And it's amazing to see how many. It's basically a score out of 5, and it's amazing to see how many are 4 and above, which is brilliant. So you know, if anybody who is traveling has any concerns or worries, jump onto my LinkedIn. There's a website for this. There's a link to the website on there, and you can see exactly how your airline and also airport ranks in the list of COVID safe.
That's actually really good to know, because especially when crew are looking to book flights, that might actually help them choose an airline in which to travel.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I'll put it on there, and I would wholeheartedly make, hope that people will go and look on there. Like I say, you know, it's nothing, you know, it's not related to Blue Marine or anything like that. It's just a website that we found. And like I said, it's brilliant. It tells you exactly what the procedures they're putting in place to keep you safe whilst you're traveling. And like I said, they've also got a score out of 5, a safety rating out of 5. And like I said, it's amazing how many airlines are at the top end of the score compared to being down at the low end.
Nice. Well, last week you created an email address for crew,
Yes.
and we did get some responses this week. So, what were the questions out there that crew had in regards to travel?
Yeah, we did. We got a couple. So to start, we received an email from a crew member wanting to know further about applying for self-isolation instead of mandatory quarantine on arrival in South Africa. There is some good news actually this week that the process has been made easier with applications now being able to be made for home isolation online. The website address you'll need to go to is www.selfquarantine.silveraxiom.com. It's not the easiest website to get onto.
You'll provide the link, right?
So yeah, we'll provide the link so that people have got it. Once you get onto the website, basically you'll be asked a series of questions with regards to your travel arrangements, your home address where self-isolation will take place, other generic questions like family members who will be at the address with you, and just uploading your itinerary for the last 30 days along with an upload of your South African passport and ID number. Again, what we would recommend is applying for that as soon as you know your travel plans are confirmed. We also did receive another email in from another crew member wanting to know about entry into the Ukraine. Now, the Ukraine we've not really touched on at all, so it was quite nice to get this question in. There's good news and bad news on that front. Unfortunately, the Ukraine government announced on the 28th of August that they've extended the ban on foreign travellers into the Ukraine until the 28th of September. However, the good news is that crew members travelling for the purpose of work are entitled to enter the country under one of the exemptions. Under the exemptions travel, though, foreign crew members entering the country must have an insurance policy to cover possible costs associated with COVID-19. Again, there is a caveat with this as well. The insurance company who your policy is with must have a representative office within the Ukraine to be valid for travel.
So how does that work, for example, if you're, flying like with Virgin Atlantic and you've got the airline's insurance policy?
Unfortunately, I guess that would end 12 hours after you arrive into the country, unless you're on a return ticket where it would cover you for the whole lot. So unfortunately, you'd have to get a second policy out as well to cover you for whilst you're in the Ukraine. And that's obviously depending on whether the Virgin insurance company, whoever that insurance company they've got it through, even has, a base in the Ukraine anyway.
And how many companies out there are providing that insurance as well? I mean, there's not a lot.
Especially right, and then like I say, and then they've got to have a representative office in the Ukraine. It makes it a small number, I've got to say.
Yeah, I can imagine that's making it very, very difficult. But I mean, at least there is a possibility. I guess all we can do is ask you to maybe do that research for us so crew can contact you for that information.
Indeed, feel free. Like I said, they can contact us on the crew travel updates at gmail.com.
I love creating work, Feely. Any other questions that were out there?
That's the two we've got for this week. We can, we'll answer more next week if people send stuff in. So yeah, all good.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, I mean, what was it again? Crew travel updates at gmail.com?
That's right. Yeah, crew travel updates at gmail.com.
Wonderful. We'll make sure to put that up there because, yeah, I mean, you see it all over social media. People are still questioning, and every single time there's an announcement, especially when it comes to the hotspots for crew, when the governments make a new announcement, all of a sudden you see one after the other after the other. Oh no, I was planning on going home, or oh no, I was planning on going to work. What am I going to do? And it's every day there is a hotspot that is coming up with new travel arrangements, and it's scary for crew.
It is. It's tough. It is, like you say, it is a daily occurrence still. We're what are we, 4 or 5 months into the pandemic now, aren't we? And
Yeah.
and every day, every week, plans are changing. Again, you see this last week, Germany are now saying that they're now going to, whereas before people were allowed to take COVID tests free of charge, they're now going to start charging people for that. They're also now going to go back to the self-isolation as well. So whereas people were looking at Germany and saying that, they've got this sus, they know what they're doing, they're now having to backtrack slightly and change it once again when they start to see a spike in cases. So you've got to have your finger on the pulse every day with regards to travel at the moment, because it does change ever so quickly.
Well, the one good thing is, though, with crew especially, is that the majority of countries do have exemptions for travel for crew.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, exactly right. Most countries at this moment in time do have exemptions in. It's super yachts. They fall under a slightly different bracket, so you have to be careful because they're classed as pleasure vessels. So,
Right.
whereas it says ship's crew are exempted, you do have to slightly look into the small print, because some do say pleasure vessels don't come under that bracket, whereas some do. Mostly countries they do cover super yachts, but there are one or two who don't. But every time we make a booking, we make sure we check to see that they're definitely covered.
Look, I have to be absolutely honest. If I was crew right now, there's no way I would try and navigate any of that on my own. I would definitely be calling someone like you saying, please just do it. Because realistically, the pricing that they could get through you, through a company like you that does all of the homework for them and make sure that it all works out, accordingly, is pretty much the same they could find anywhere, or maybe less.
It is, and like we say before, crew are entitled to book wherever they like. They don't have to go for a marine travel provider at all. The only thing I would say on that is you have to be extremely careful when you're booking travel online. They won't tell you whether you can transit certain countries. They'll just book the ticket for you. They won't ask you the questions. And places like Singapore and Doha and other countries like that, you can't collect separate tickets. Singapore especially, you can't transit from one airline to another. It has to all be on Singapore Airlines. So there are lots of little nuances when you're traveling through certain countries that you're not going to be aware of if you're booking online. And that's what we're here for, to try and take the pressure off a little bit. And price wise, you'll probably find we can do published fares. Not everything we do is marine fares. If a published fare is cheaper, we'll happily book a published fare if that's what people want. But what we tend to find is that people want that slight comfort blanket, so to speak, that if they have a marine fare, they know it's fully refundable, they know it's fully changeable. Because you've also got to take in not just COVID, but you've got to take into account the yacht's itinerary, or any last minute changes that they may have. So everything's moving at once. The COVID restrictions are changing, the yacht's plans are changing. Crew members, their plans may change last minute for whatever reason. So for me personally, if I was a crew member, I'd be going for a marine fare, because I know that I can change it, I can refund it at the last minute. And I've got people who have been dealing with this for the last 5 months who know exactly what's going on, behind the scenes, making sure that everything's okay.
Well, and the fact remains that if you're booking online, like you said, you pay the fare, and then the flight is canceled or the flight never existed to begin with. So then you've got to take the headache and the time to fight to get your money back. And that might actually come 2 to 3 months down the road. And in the meantime, you've got to find another flight that you've got to book and pay for. And who knows if that one's actually going to go through or if you're actually going to be able to get on board that. And again, another fight to get the money back. And it just seems like there's this pattern. Whereas, if you contact someone like yourselves, there you go. Do it, deal with it. I'm out. And that's basically, I think for me, would be the easiest option.
Exactly right. We'll happily help anybody who needs help. Like I said, even if it's just questions and they've got queries or whatever, honestly, please contact us. We're more than happy to help. And like you say, I can't sit here and I can't guarantee that every flight that we book is not going to be cancelled, because the reality is stuff does get cancelled. Like we were talking about Australia, Qatar Airlines, we've seen numerous crew have their flights cancelled last minute this week. But rest assured, when they get cancelled, we are straight on it and we are looking for that next available flight. And what I've seen this week with regards to certain scraping air websites and the stuff that they're offering people to Australia is disgusting. And that's not me saying that from a marine travel provider. If I didn't work in this industry and I was looking at that, honestly, it's disgusting, some of the routes they're selling people and at the prices they're selling as well. So, like I said, even if you want to book online, that's fine. But if you've got questions, honestly, please contact us and we will happily talk you through it as much as we possibly can.
Nice. Well, I would rather pass you the headache than deal with that myself, because it changes so quickly and it's a full-time job. I mean, I do watch your LinkedIn and I do encourage everybody to connect with you on LinkedIn, because every single day, I don't know how many posts you make on LinkedIn, but the information is consistently coming in one after the other after the other. And it's, for me, it's quite shocking to see how often things are changing on a daily basis through you.
I know. Honestly, it drives my wife crazy. I'll be sitting there at night on my phone, and another one, and another one. She's like, "Are you going to watch this?" Oh, just got to get this out. Just got to get this. Just got to get this out. And before I know it, it's like 10 or 15 posts all gone out.
Do you know what? I mean, we are talking worldwide, so things are changing consistently. But you know what, Lee? I'm sure that your wife is ready for you to come and rescue you. I hear you have a birthday party in the background.
Yeah, just a 13-year-old's birthday party. So there's 10, 13 teenagers running around the house causing havoc at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife wants you back. But thank you again. Once again, it is very, very relevant right now in order to make sure that we keep this information up to date. And we will provide the email address underneath this interview when it airs. Thank you again for all your due diligence, and any contact information we will provide as well.
That's great stuff. Thanks so much for having me once more.
Once again, you've been watching the travel vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. Thank you to Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel. My name is Ria. I've been your host. Tune in again next week.